With the Eddie and the Hot Rods thing, well, that's quite interesting because I mean, how old were you when you got into Eddie and the Hot Rods? And could you tell us the local newspaper ad story? Because that's quite a lucky break there, isn't it?
Yeah, July 1975. So it's a month before my 16th birthday. And I was at Technical College in Southend. I've been asked not to return to the school I was at for reasons I won't.
Yeah.
Stupid reasons, you know.
Yeah.
And I'd gone to technical college. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, you know, with my life. But I was playing the bass. And it just one, you know, I was sat in my room one day and just started some holidays. And I just thought I'd go and buy the local paper. And I'd never bought the local paper before. And I don't think I ever bought it again.
Yeah.
And when I got home, went out to my bedroom and turned the back pages under the bit that said musical instruments. There was just a one-line ad that said bass player wanted. So I summoned up the courage to, somebody played in the band. I mean, I played with a few mates and we'd done one gig at a Dockers club in Tilbury. I forget what we played now. Because I Love You by Slade was one of them.
Oh, yeah. Great song.
And I think Little Wing, Jimi Hendrix, but it's just mates messing about. Anyway, so I phoned it up and the bloke on the other end of the phone just said, "Can you play fast?" And I had no idea because, you know, I was stuck in the room playing on the Focus and Hawkwind and Mountain and T-Rex and Lindisfarne and all that stuff, you know. And anyway, I went down the next day. They said, "Come down and audition." Dr. Feelgood's studio, they had a house on Canby Island. My dad took me down there. And by this time, I had a 3/4 size, sort of vaguely Fenderish copy called a Commodore that I've still got. It's kind of in bits now. And it was in a cardboard box. I remember walking into the Feelgood's place and there was 2 or 3 other bass players there waiting to be auditioned, you know, with their shiny Fender guitar cases and shiny, and, you know, they're a lot older than me and a lot more experienced from what I could hear coming through the walls. So I just thought, "Oh, you silly sod, Paul, what are you doing here? You know, you can't match these people with their, you know, professional guitars and the way they play." And I was just absolutely terrified, you know. I just wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. But I was the last person to go in, and they all looked pretty young, you know. Most of them were just a couple of years older than me, and they just launched into this song without telling me how it went. They just said it's an A, which all their songs were.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, have a go at this. Come on, it's an A, and 100 miles an hour, and off they went. And I just played everything that I thought I could throw in, and I vastly overplayed, as I often still do, but nobody's ever told me in 45 years not to. So I've carried on that way ever since. And they said, "Yeah, great, you know, you got the gig if you want it."
Wow.
And when I said, "Oh, fantastic, but how come you picked me and not these other guys? Because they've obviously got much more experience." They said, "Yeah, but, you know, we're not looking for experience and technicality. We're looking for, you know, enthusiasm and a vibe, you know." And that's what pulled me through, the enthusiasm and a vibe, as opposed to all the ads that you used to see in the back of the music rags, you know, pro musician wanted, must have wheels, you know, must have pro gear, must have all this.
Yeah.
Of course, I had none of that.
No.
And it was really just a kid's band. I mean, they were supporting old ladies bingo sessions when I joined them.
Wow.
But the first gig we did was a week later, supporting a Southend songwriter called Mickey Jupp, who wrote quite a lot of stuff for the Feelgoods and other people. And then a couple of weeks later, we got our first gig at a pub called the Kensington in London. That was in September 75, you know, well before all the punk new wave thing. And we were the first band ever to be called a punk band in Sounds in November, by Chaz DeWally. And I know this because I started writing a book, as I've started writing a book for the last 10 years and get so far and stop.
Yeah.
Because I fished out all the cuttings I got from back in that time. And it went from there, and we had a record deal with Island Records by Christmas, 3 months. You know, I mean, that would never happen today.
No.
Before any of the other bands that would become new wave punk, you know, the Stranglers or the Police or the Damned or the Clash and all that lot, you know.
I mean, you were very young then, though, weren't you? So what did you have to sort of get any kind of parental, you know?
Well, no, my dad had to sign a contract.
Yeah.
Without having a clue what it meant, as none of us did.
Yeah.
And when we went to America a year later, I was still just 17. And you couldn't drink, you know, in America until you're 21 or go into any clubs or bars. So that was fun. I just stayed in a dressing room for like loads of the shows and hide me whiskey and coke if you know, promoter came in or something. But yeah, a lot. I mean, you know, a hell of a lot happened in a really short space of time. I mean, you can imagine, you know, a kid of 16 suddenly being thrown into this maelstrom of everything the world's got to throw at you. You know, a kid in a candy shop.
Yeah, it must have been was it how kind of wild was it, you know?
It was wild.
Okay.
I mean, suffice to say, I'm, you know, I marvel each day that I'm still here to tell the tale, because by all rights I shouldn't be, you know. I mean, we had fun and then some. I mean, why wouldn't you? You know, if you're 17, 18, 19, to in America for 6 weeks with Ramones and Talking Heads and
wow
and all that, it's you kind of make the most of it.
Wow, cool. Do you have inverted commas a printable kind of favorite story of either of those acts during that tour, or, you know, an event, or, you know, a gig or something special happened along the way? Maybe with the Ramones, I don't know.
Most of them aren't printable.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them, but
wow.
I mean, you know, that they were. Yeah, I probably can't repeat them on here. There's a great Talking Heads one that I couldn't possibly recount.
What a shame! What a shame.
Point in time, yeah.
The other night, I don't know whether you've seen it, Paul. There's a film out about CBGBs. Did you play there on that tour, by the way?
Yeah, we did 3 nights there.
Yeah.
The first time we went to America, and the first night, our manager Ed, who was less of a manager and more of a sort of fifth member of the band, in the partying and staying up for 3 days stakes, for some reason bought all our passports in his case with him, or his bag with him, to CBGB's. And when we piled back in the dressing room after the show, of course, they'd been nicked. And there was a phone call at the hotel the next morning. We were staying at the Gramercy Park to Ed, and said, you can have your passports back for, I don't know what it was, you know, $1,000 or something. So we had to buy our passports back. And the second night we walked out, there was some bloke had been shot, lying in the doorway, literally lying on the doorway, with people walking over him, walking out. And the third night, when we went to get paid, we were told by Hilly Crystal, who owned CBGB's, that us and our entourage, which is mostly, well, it was all just kind of punters that we met there, and well, I'll buy you a drink, you know. We'd actually drunk more than our fee. So we came out after 3 nights at CBGB's with no money, having seen somebody shot and all our passports being it. But we had fun, and that was the main thing.
Yeah. When I remember later, I'll try and find, if you haven't seen it, I'll send you a link, Paul, because it's
Was it Netflix? Is it all YouTube or what?
It was on Netflix or something. It was like it's a proper film. You know, Hilly Crystal is is basically, it's all about him and his.
Oh, I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah, you'd love it, I think.
I went back there. We went over to do an album with Tony Visconti 3-4 years ago to Brooklyn, and we had a photo session on the Brooklyn Bridge, and CB's is not far over the bridge, and we made a pilgrimage there, and it's now John Varvos is some like really ludicrously expensive high-end punk inverted commas clothing shop.
Oh yeah.
But they've still got one of the original walls there with all the graffiti on, which kind of brought back a few memories, you know.
Well, in the film, it gives the impression that it was an absolute disgusting toilet of a venue, but in some ways that's quite good. I hope that is true. Is that the case, really?
Yeah, it was the scungiest venue anyone's ever been in, but hence its vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was great. We went there. We played there for 3 nights. We played Max's Kansas City for 3 nights, and CB's was father. That the Whiskey in Whiskey Go Go in Los Angeles were the two, you know, because everybody played there, you know, Doors and Hendrix and, you know, you name it. And of course, in CB's, it started off as a country and western bluegrass place.
Yeah.
And, you know, all the Lou Reeds and the Velvets and the Patti Smiths and all that played there. So it was, I mean, to me, wasn't really very sure who these people were. I mean, I was, you know, I'd been in the band for a year and a half or something, but I soon found out. So it was all kind of pretty heady stuff, you know.
Just off the bat, do you the film gives the impression, which may well just absolutely be the case, full stop. You know, the punk it came out of America, and then it was kind of interpreted and represented in the UK. You know, which way around do you think it was?
I get really vexed about this punk thing. I mean, you know, punk is different things to different people. To some people, it's the Sex Pistols, and it didn't start until then. To me and the Hotrods, punk was the Kinks. You know, I mean, you don't get more punk than you really got me.
Yeah.
And the Kingsmen, and all the garage bands on the Chocolate Watch Band, the Siege, the 13th Elevators, from those Nuggets. I don't know whether you know the Nuggets compilation album that Lenny Kaye did.
Heard of it, never heard it.
I mean, they're just classic 2.5 minute squeaky organ, you know, scratchy guitars, clanky drums.
It's great.
Just real raw kid stuff, you know, just these new just bands playing in garages. That was kind of punk, you know. It was you didn't have to go to music college to play it.
No.
The you know, the Kingsmen, Louis, you know, kind of classic 3-chord.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, you know, it got talked about, I guess, you know, 72 when Iggy and the Stooges, you know, he was called a punk. Richard Hell, you know, McLaren got the whole idea for his clothing and the Pistols thing from Richard Hell, because he was managing the New York Dolls. They got called punk, 72. He was managing the Dolls over in New York, and he went to see Richard Hell in CBGBs, and Richard had his spiky hair, makeup, and ripped t-shirt, and that's what Malcolm McLaren, you know, it's all documented if you know where to find it.
Yeah.
And then we got called punk. I mean, there's an interview on YouTube with Joe Strummer, and he said the first time he heard the word punk is when he read in Sounds about Eddie and the Hotrods, this new punk band. He said, "What is this paint? What is this thing called punk?" Billy Bragg said, "You know, that anybody that says the first punk band wasn't Eddie and Hotrods is a lie. We didn't think ourselves a punk. We just thought ourselves a high energy rock and roll band." And then it kind of, it was a journalist thing, you know, probably the third time it had been reinvented, and your Caroline Coons and your Nick Kents and your Tony Parsons and your Judy Birch was all jumped on it.
Yeah.
You know, journalists want to make a name for themselves, so we discovered it. And then, you know, the Clash and the Pistols came along, and basically, and the Damned, you know, all called punk. But and then it turned into this horrible shouty oi thing, you know.
Yeah.
I've got no time for. So it's it's, I mean, punk is different things, different people, but to me, it was always those 60s garage bands.
Yeah, the point you make there is a really good one, which I've not ever thought about or heard anyone say before. Really, it doesn't matter whether you were punk or whether you were, jazz. It doesn't matter what the hell you were. You were in a great band, doing great stuff, and you were what you were.
Exactly.
If whatever they chose to call you, that's their problem, really, isn't it?
It was really an attitude, but that attitude was very malleable, and most of the time it was pretty organic.